step up to the microphone, I'm assuming. So, y'all, thanks for coming. This is our fourth meeting for the public input for the historic districts and guidelines to be implemented. We've had actually our 3 public meetings already, but you know, the law requires a lot of different things, and one of it is to advertise 3 consecutive weeks in the newspaper, and there was a miscommunication, and we only did 1 week. So now we've gone back and we've done our 3 weeks in the newspaper, and so we wanted to have 1 more meeting for public input. We've had a lot of good suggestions, and all of our previous meetings, everything y'all commented has been written down. And it will be presented to mayor and council as you said it, as you presented. You guys who came in late, if you would make sure that you do a sign-in sheet. And since we've already had the 3 meetings and we have quite a few comments on there, and as a board, what we do is we just make a recommendation to mayor and council. Mayor and council will vote on the historic district and the guidelines with edits and changes as they feel fit. So when it leaves here and it goes, Brenda, I don't know if it's on your next agenda for April. I think it is.
We haven't gotten the agenda yet.
Okay. I think it will be on the April agenda. And so at that point, they will review all of the comments, they will discuss, and they will adopt it with edits or with changes and with comment, and without any more public comment, because this is the public comment arena. And since we've already had our 3 meetings and we could talk as long as we want, we're trying to limit our speaking to 2 minutes today. I don't have anyone who has signed up to speak. I know a lot of people have already expressed their opinion. But if you would like to speak, you're more than welcome to, and just hold your hand up at this time. Right? Do we have anything else we should add on there? Is there anything else that we need to? Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right.
Feel free to make comments or ask questions if you need something explained about the documents we've got together so far.
That's right. And the full guidelines, they're like 80 pages, but a lot of them are pictures of houses and examples of architecture and explanations, and we have everything broken down to windows and fences and landscaping, everything, so you can easily flip through and find if you have a question. Actually had a woman call me today, and she lived over in Whitehall District, and her parents live in Winter Hills. And she was concerned, had some concerns. Of course, she's under the Athens Historic Preservation Commission, and their guidelines are much stricter and much stronger than what we have implemented in here. But she didn't realize that we also have our own zoning here. So anybody who's new here, we have our own historic preservation and we have our own zoning. So if you were to do some changes on your house and you are in the historic district, the way you would do it is you would fill out a certificate of appropriateness. It's 2 pages, super simple. And you would bring it to the HPC first. And we meet the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock. And we have been meeting, we've been meeting over at the depot so we can stay far apart, but if we have a lot of people coming, then we'll move here. So it's a little bit fluid during this, crazy time. So anyway, so what would happen if, say you wanted to put a porch on your front of your house. So you would come to us and you would give us, you'd fill out your certificate of appropriateness. We would look at the design, make sure that the materials are appropriate to your home. Everything looks good, it kind of blends in. Was there a porch there before, was not a porch, etc. And we would all discuss it together, and then we would make recommendations to approve it or to approve it with changes or to not recommend that it go forward. At that point in time, if it's approved with changes, then it would go over to zoning. And you would go to City Hall, get a little form for zoning, I think it's $30, I don't know if it varies or not. But then you would go to zoning and make sure you follow all the zoning rules, because we have zoning rules here. And they deal with pitch of the roof and things like that. And then they would approve it, boom, you're done. So that's it. You don't have to deal with Athens, Clark County. We are the people. We are the power. So anyway, and we also now have a code enforcement agent. And he should be familiar with all the code, the rules that are currently here and that will be here under the guidelines of the HPC. So, and it's got a little car that says code enforcement on there, so. Okay. Anybody care to speak?
I do have one question. Is Winterville definitely gonna be in the historic?
What will be is, Winter Hills is the biggest question. It's 90%, 95% of the issues have been with Winter Hill. And the reason we have Winter Hill to begin with is because according to the, what is it, no.
The federal law.
The federal law, right, who is not the national parks, but
The Interior Department.
Interior.
Secretary
Thank you. The Secretary of Interior has set up all of the historic guidelines, and we fall under them. So we have things that we have to do that are to be able to qualify as a Historic Preservation Commission. And so they set all the rules and guidelines. And so one of their things is, if a house is going to be 50 years old in the next 10 years, and you've started an HPC, because we've been doing this 3 years, so it's going to take 10 years to get this passed, as you can well imagine, in a big town. So anyway, so they recommend anything that's going to turn 50 in the next 50 years be included in your district. Right, in the next 10 years. So you're going to turn 50 in just the next 10 years, then you go ahead and put it in there. And then, mayor and commission makes the decision. We don't make this decision. We just say, yes, this area, over 50% of the houses are going to be over 50 years old in the next 10 years. And so we are pretty much required to put that in there. Or they could say, why didn't you put this in there? So we just go ahead and put it in there, and then mayor and council decide if it's going to be in there or not. So, and Dodd's pretty clear on the way most of the people feel.
Yeah, because it's a rental area.
Well, we're hoping it won't ever. I mean, I've priced that stuff. Y'all's houses have...
89.
Yeah, well, the housing prices in Winter Hills have gone up about $50,000 in the last
Mine increased
2 years.
Like I said,
Right. And pretty soon those numbers will rule out rentals, We'll see, anyway, we'll see.
Yeah,
But they still have the...
most of them stayed about 15 years.
Right. Well, and the guidelines will actually help you in that. So if you were to have someone that purchased a home in Winter Hill and they wanted to do something, inappropriate to it, they would not be able to do that. So it's protection as well. Yes, Sam?
You just made an inaccurate statement when you started. You said the federal law. It's not a law, it's a recommendation. A law is a mandate. A recommendation is just a suggestion. It's not a law.
And the National Preservation Act of 1966 made the law.
Made it a law that if you're going to do historic preservation, these are the guidelines. Not that you have to do every single thing that they say.
No,
That's why each city comes up with their own. So
Right.
don't say it's a law.
Okay, well, I misspoke. It is a law, but this is
There was
what
a
this
law
board
passed
is
for
for.
recommendations for historic, not a law saying that you've got to have everything in here.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. This is why this board is here, is so that we actually discuss. I mean, if there's something that you want to do to your home, then we're here to help you do it unless it's grossly inappropriate. And then you can always appeal it and go to mayor and council and give your reasons, for that. So, yes.
You mentioned appropriateness of materials. If we're talking about historic preservation, does that rule out solar panels?
There is a section on solar panels in the guidelines, and, go ahead. He's our educated expert. I'll look up the solar panel thing.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Scott. I'm secretary of the HPC. Regarding solar panels, first off, of course you can have solar panels. There are recommendations that we have put forward in the guidelines regarding the placement of solar panels. I would say the entirety of our focus is the aesthetics of the front-facing facade of your structure, what you can see from the street. If you want to put a solar farm in your backyard and nobody can see, knock yourself out. Put it on a rear-facing slope of the roof or a flat part of the roof, absolutely. If it has to be on a part of the roof that can be seen from the street, we can look at ways of making that unobtrusive. I think that there's this impression that maybe we're trying to be some sort of rubber stamp committee that says yes, no, that's all you can do. And our goal is to make Winterville look and grow in a sustained way with your help. And if you have suggestions for how to do solar panels that don't jive with ours, we'll find a compromise that works. That's why we're here, to work with you. So it's a good question. Anyone else?
So you have the house on Peachtree and,
217 Robert Hardman.
okay.
But it is on the corner of
Yeah,
Peachtree.
right. Yeah, exactly. You're our arborist, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I
perfect.
am he.
Perfect.
Oh, you're the new Roger?
He's the new Roger.
New Roger, yes.
He is, he's the new Roger. And
Awesome.
he faces Robert Hardiman, but his side yard is on Peachtree. So your street facing is Robert Hardiman.
Okay, not Peachtree.
Correct, yes,
That's correct.
it's Main Street facing.
Jonathan's got 3 streets. Jonathan's got 2 streets.
No,
Aaron, Aaron's got 3 streets, he's got 2
I've
streets.
got 3.
Oh, he's got 3 streets.
My house is surrounded.
So the front door is the front.
Okay.
Yes.
This may be too specific a question, and I apologize for
No
being
worries.
so late in the game. But I just bought a property and just heard about the Historic Preservation District, and I think it's a great thing overall. My question has to do, my property is the only one in my subdivision that is within the district, and I'm wondering kind of what went into the decision. It's 100 Springbrook Drive.
I live at 165 Springbrook Drive. So I live in Springbrook, so I know what you're talking about.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you're at the top of the hill in the front of our neighborhood.
The remodeled house, the first one on the street.
Excellent.
Henry Meyer.
First off, welcome to the neighborhood. You'll see my son and I walking a lot. That stretch along Henry Meyer was selected to be part of the district because of the age of the houses. Springbrook as a development was in the mid to late 1980s, which is why my house, which is further on down the road, and the rest of that development is not included. Could easily be included in the next 10 to 15 years, 10 plus years, but not as of yet. Your house, if I'm not mistaken, was from the 1960s?
No, it was 85.
Well, we looked at, who did that? Was that you? Yeah, it would probably just be non-contributing. Okay, so that's what it is. So
That's a good.
we looked at what's called Q Public, which is an online database of homes and when they were built and their valuation. Can you hear me, by the way? I see you leaning forward. Is that better?
My glasses fogged up, so
I'm the black shape over here. So we look at areas within a district. We are unable, as a district, to simply select all the contributing houses. Contributing means homes that are 40 or 50 years or older. There are going to be what are called contributing structures and non-contributing structures in a district just by the very nature of the beast. It sounds like your house is going to be one of those non-contributing structures, which means you have a different set of guidelines that apply to you. You still are required to go through Historic Preservation Commission and zoning if you wish to do some sort of building onto your property, but we're not requiring you to retrofit your property to some sort of earlier appearance or anything like that. So, like, an example would be like if you wanted to, All right, so the solar panel restriction we mentioned earlier would probably still apply to you because historically those were not there. But you're not going to be required to put in period clapboard siding or anything like that. Yeah.
So everyone considering doing anything to the front of their houses has to go through HPC, even if their house is not 50 years old yet?
That's correct. The 50 years is for the establishment of a district, so we know what areas of the city become a district. But if you live within the district, whether you're contributing or not, you still come before HPC. Now, that said, the rules for contributing structures are there simply to ensure that any modifications you make continue to maintain the character of the area. If this gentleman wanted to turn his non-contributing house into a 4-story duplex, we'd probably suggest against that. But, you know, things that you do to your house that are non-contributing, that's a different story. Yes?
Does it also apply to, like, if you were gonna make a shed or a shop on the property, is that something that has to be?
If you can see it from the street. So, we've had a test certificates of appropriateness, you know, where we just wanted to see how the system would work, and where, like the mayor, he installed a shed on his property. He didn't need to do a COA, we didn't need to vote on the COA, but we went through the process just to see how it would all work. And yeah, we because you could see it from the street, we wanted to help him get a shed that would match the appearance of his other sheds. And so that's what we recommended, and that's what he did. So if you can see it from the street, it would fall under what we recommend. If you can't see it from the street, it's just zoning.
You can also block it with landscaping
Oh, absolutely.
as well. So
If
you'll
it
go-
weren't appropriate, let's say, then you have to lock
Well,
it
we're
with
pretty
landscape.
good on our landscaping, you know, as long as you maintain your landscaping, you know, we don't have any issues with it. If you go behind Don's house, you'll see it's a little, you know, nice little building. And Aaron had a metal building.
I did the same thing, and it was also something that George Chandler wanted to be done also, just through planning and zoning, before we had an HPC.
Yeah.
I had a metal handy house shed that was on my property, and it needed to be clad so that it was something that looked somewhat period appropriate for my house that was going to be on there. So, I did the same thing. That was a couple years ago.
Well, what we did with Aaron, though, he had a metal building, and so he had 6 months. I mean, we weren't even really, you know, legit.
Everything we've done before now has been basically just test campaigns.
Yeah,
Just keep
we're
going.
just practicing. So he had 6 months, and he came with wooden panels, right, wooden panels and little strips, and just kind of encased it, enveloped his little shed, and it looks cute. It's fine, you know, so.
So I've got a mason working on my house right now, and he said that the brick that the house is made out of is almost impossible to get at this point. And you mentioned matching a shop to the house, or at least to the other sheds. If it weren't able to be matched, then it just have to be some other form of appropriate materials?
Correct. While the first recommendation is always to go with like materials, we know that that's not always going to be the case. If your house had asbestos siding, you're not going to put that in your shed, or in this case, your bricks if they can't be found. It's primarily concerned with aesthetics. You know, Kim has mentioned a few times a really good example of some banister work that they did on their house, balusters, excuse me, that were cost prohibitive to get made with the historic materials. They found ones that were aesthetically the same in plastic for far, far, far cheaper. That if she had come before us with that would have been fine, you know. And again, I say if because we don't have authority to make these recommendations until mayor and council gives us those authorities.
And we really look for, if you're doing a repair on the front-facing portion of your house to something, let's say you had to repair some siding, and you had wooden clapboard siding, that's where we really would like that to be wooden clapboard. But if you're gonna put an addition on the side, that could be hardy planks, that could be something that's approved through, or if you're gonna do a shop that's on the property or something like that was approved through planning and zoning, that also could be something that generally would fit with the aesthetic, but we're not expecting you to go and get clapboard siding similar to that.
And in fact, to Aaron's point, if you are doing an extension on your property, we recommend that it have a visual distinction of its own. It still maintain the character of the neighborhood and of the building, but that it not look identical to the existing structure, because we still want to be able to see that what the existing structure had been. Anybody else?
What if you're just doing something as simple as painting your house?
We have no say in painting. Georgia law, we can't make any recommendations on painting. Go fuchsia and pink if you want.
Plaid if you want to. You may have the wrath of your neighbors, but we don't, you may have the wrath of your neighbors, but we don't control that.
Anybody else? Okie dokie. I'm going to go write down some of these comments, and then we're going to go on with the rest of our meeting. Thank you all very much.
Also, if later on you come up with something that you didn't come up with today, you could feel free to email us, or what's our email address now?
wintervillehpc@gmail.com.
And you can email it, and we'll include it in the package that's going to the city council.
You said Winterville HPC?
And also, all of our meetings are open to the public too, just like this one's going to be. So you're welcome to come to any meetings you want to ask us any question.
Okay, we good?
I actually have one more question. So you mentioned for the solar panels, the best spot on the house is front-facing facade for our solar panels. Is there any potential for, I guess we could say, you guys allowing those things if a reasonable and well-argued reason for it is given?
Is that the question? Yeah, absolutely. So, again, our job is to listen to you and work with you, not to tell you a hard yes and a hard no and be done with it. What we would ask to see on the certificate of appropriateness is a mock-up of what you want to do, whether that's just a pencil sketch or something more elaborate, that's totally up to you. We'd like to know what it is that, like maybe eBay or Amazon or Google link, what it is that you're buying, just so we can see it. If you have any pictures of homes around you for additional context, the more information you can give us, the better. And we may look at it and say, this is not going to be obtrusive, or could you move it 6 feet to the right, or whatever the situation may be. So I can't state one way or the other without seeing it, but yeah, our job is absolutely to work with you.
But there's the potential to go back and forth. Very good.
Absolutely. And then what we say is not the be-all, end-all. If you don't like our decision, we can always appeal to city council. That's an option for every citizen as well.
One last comment I wanted to make was that the purpose of these meetings is to get the public input, correct? And so far, I have not heard one person in favor of Winterville being in the historic district. Let's see if you actually listen to the public input.
Like I said earlier, we have a sheet of every comment that was given to us. And every comment, these comments will now be included in that, and they will all be sent to mayor and council. They will read through them. They will make the decision on exactly where the districts will be and the guidelines. They have the editing power to do that. Anything else? Anybody else?
What's the landmark in Winterville? I see on the map there's a landmark.
They're all graves.
It's a cemetery or a grave.
They're all cemeteries or graves. That's one thing we had saved the Center Baptist Church cemetery because there's not any stones or anything, and there was a lot for sale next to it. We were concerned that there would be graves in the lot next to it, so we did a lot of research, and we determined it's just this one little acre where the Center Baptist Church cemetery is, and so we have signage on there and have designated, so every one person who was building, or who, I think that lot may be under contract next to it, but they know there's a cemetery there. We will be putting signage on all of the landmarks, all of the cemeteries that we have here in our district. Just a little simple sign.
Specifically, there is in the Avery Place Senior Living, which is right there. In a corner of the property, there's an old grave that was there before the buildings were built, so it's still there. Trying to get his name, I forget his name right now, but it was there before the buildings were built, so it's still there.
Yeah, there's what, five or six of them in the historic districts, and there's maps back there at the front table. I didn't put any back there, yeah. So, yes.
Sorry, we're a little off. Is this something that's already been voted in, or if not, is it going to a vote?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Is this something that's already been voted in for the historic preservation, or if not, is it going to a vote?
This is the last of the public meetings, the public input meetings. Then it goes to mayor and council. I think it's on their next agenda or the following, and they are the ones that vote. But we've been working for 3 years on the districts. We had to do a survey of every single piece of property, how old it is, everything about it. And so we have come to have these districts that we have. There are other benefits for being in a historic district. There are speed limit controls, number one. We'll be 35 miles an hour. Somebody goes 36, they can get a ticket. So that's real meat. There are tax benefits. There are 2 pages out there that give you tax incentives and tax benefits for being in a historic district. We have zoning regulations, but the historic district guidelines help those zoning regulations. Somebody could buy 2 houses in Winterville. They could knock them down. They could potentially put a 3-story stucco house right there. So it's things, they can't do that if they're in the district, that it wouldn't be allowed.
Wouldn't the zoning laws prohibit that
It-
anyway?
I believe that.
Well, they couldn't do,
Yeah.
they probably couldn't do stucco, but
I know
they
what you
could
mean, but yeah,
certainly
and I think
could
it's
do.
limited on height too.
Exactly. I think I think it just says 2 stories, and there's a pitch. You know, they can only do a certain pitch of roof. And they couldn't do aluminum siding, vinyl siding, but they might be able to do
It's
stuff.
not going to public vote.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, there's not a public vote that's on this, no.
The public vote was, well,
We already have an ordinance.
right, so that goes backwards. Y'all want to go back to ordinance? Okay, yeah, jump.
Okay, so that goes back 3 years.
I got a question.
To create an
I'll give you
ordinance.
one quick second. Can I say something real fast? Thank you so much. I will call you next. 3 years ago, there was a public vote for council members as to whether or not there was going to be a historic preservation commission. There were public hearings like this administered at the time, and then city council voted to create this commission. Now that we are created, that has been established, that we exist. But the guidelines that we're recommending and the districts that we're recommending, they will be voted on by city council following this meeting and following the receipt of our recommendations, whatever they may be. So, no, the districts have not been created. The guidelines are not formalized and established yet, though we do foresee that happening very soon. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned vinyl siding. I have vinyl. I got it in 1990 in Winter Hills. Now what do? I got to rip it down?
No, you aren't required to retrofit any changes to your house. None at all.
Okay.
Right. Now, not to open a can of worms, but this is in zoning. If a tree fell on, now this happened to me. A tree fell on our house 3 days before we bought it. Okay, and did crash the whole back of the house. Well, the house had vinyl siding on it. The insurance had to pay for us to replace it with not vinyl siding because zoning wouldn't let you use vinyl siding. So the insurance had to pay for the house to be either put back with wood, as it originally was in 1880 something, or hardy board if the wood was so bad under the vinyl. So that worked out fine. So that was the thing. You can't replace anything or put vinyl as an addition, but what you already have is good. It doesn't, nothing goes backwards.
Yeah, it sounds like you've just been grandfathered into the city's
Yeah,
restriction
I
on
mean,
vinyl siding.
yes,
Yeah. So that's the way that works, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
good for us. Yeah.
Okay.
Thought I saw another.
Anything else?
Did I answer your question, by the way, ma'am, about whether or not this is established and ready to go? Or, okay, make sure I understood you correct, because it was kind of hard to hear you. All right, cool, thanks.
All right. Well, we've got a meeting